Hello, today we are going to be finishing the Cask of Amontillado. Just like last time, I want you guys to annotate on your copy of the story. You can pause the video as we go, and you will turn in pictures of the story that you annotated on at the end. So we left off last time learning that our narrator, Montresor, wanted revenge on Fortunato for disrespecting his family name for the last time. Montresor is very proud of his family, and he's planning this revenge very carefully. He is making sure that he does not get caught and that Fortunato knows that he's paying the price and who's making him pay. That is how his revenge is going to be successful. We know that Montresor is getting Fortunato to trust him so that he can easily take advantage of him. Fortunato's weakness is that he drinks a lot of wine and he has to prove he's a wine expert. He has a really big ego. And that's going to play into how he gets his revenge. So Fortunato and Montresor meet at the carnival, and Fortunato is under the influence of alcohol. He's not in the right state of mind. And Montresor tricks Fortunato into coming to his house by appealing to his ego. He claims that he bought this fancy wine and needs a wine expert to come look at it. He says he's going to ask this other dude, and instead, Fortunato insists that he has to come along. So they go to his house, and they are alone. He also tricks his servants to leave. So now Montresor and Fortunato are alone at his house. They are making their way into his basement or the catacombs under his house. So that is where we left off. Now I'm going to read you the story, and we are going to stop and annotate as we go. We are on page 3. Asking him to be careful as he followed, I went down before him, down under the ground, deep under the old walls of my palace. We came finally to the bottom of the steps and stood there for a moment together. The earth which had formed the floor was cold and harsh. We were entering the last resting place of the dead of the Montresor family. Here, too, we kept our finest wines, here in the cool, dark, still air under the ground. Fortunato's step was not sure because of the wine he had been drinking. He looked uncertainly around him, trying to see through the thick darkness which pushed in around us. Here, our brightly burning lights seemed weak indeed, but our eyes soon became used to the darkness. We could see the bones of the dead lying in the piles along the walls. The stones of the walls were wet and cold. From the long rows of bottles which were lying on the floor among the bones, I chose one which contained a very good wine. The stone wall with it. I struck the stone wall with it and broke off the small end. I offered the bottle to Fortunato. Here, Fortunato, drink some of this fine Medoc. It will help keep us warm. Drink! Thank you, my friend. I drink to the dead who lie sleeping around us. And I, Fortunato, I drink to your long life. Ah, a very fine wine indeed, but the Amontillado. It's farther on. Come. We walked for some time. We were now under the river's bed, and the water fell in drops upon us from above. Deeper into the ground we went, past still more bones. Your vaults are many and large. There seems to be no end to them. We are a great family, and an old one. It's not far now, but I can see you are trembling with the cold. Come, let us go back before it's too late. It is nothing. Let us go on. But first, another drink of your Medoc. I took up from among the bones another bottle. It was another wine of a fine quality, a de Gravi. Again, I broke off the neck of the bottle. Fortunato took it and drank it all without stopping for a breath. He laughed and threw the empty bottle over his shoulder. Okay, so in this section of the story, they are walking down into the deep under of the old walls of my palace. So they are down below, under the ground. So here the author is really setting up the setting of the story. He's giving us a picture of where they are, and it's getting creepier as we go. So we want to look for these details that show us that this setting is getting more creepy and disturbing. And this lets us know that something bad is going to happen. You know, they're underground, deep under the walls of the palace. It says the earth which formed the floor was cold and hard. We were entering the resting place of the dead of the Montresor family. So now we see that, you know, they're in a place surrounded by dead bodies. It's cold, a hard stone floor, and they're deep underground. This is all cluing in the reader that, hey, something bad is going to happen. And Fortunato should understand something bad's happening too, but he's not, because he has been drinking too much and his ego is in the way of him really seeing bad things that could be happening. So go ahead and take a minute if you need to pause and underline on your paper these details or evidence that I have underlined. Okay, we also have more details the more we scroll. See, they said our brightly burning lights seemed weak indeed. Now it's getting darker. Their torches that they're carrying are starting to be less bright. They're starting to go out because of the air quality. So we have darkness. So we can see bones of the dead lying in large piles against the wall. The stone walls were wet and cold. And more details showing us that it is getting creepier and creepier. We have a very sinister moment down here where Fortunato will toast to the dead lying around him, and Fortunato makes a toast to, Montresor makes a toast to Fortunato's long life, and we know that this is kind of creepy, and we'll learn this term a little later, but ironic that Fortunato we know nothing good is coming out of this trip. So when Montresor toasts to his long life, we know he doesn't mean it. So again, go ahead and underline that on your paper or highlight that if you have a highlighter. And finally, we see them walking, and again, Fortunato, he's trembling, he's maybe coughing some more, and Montresor asks him to go back. Like, oh, let's go back, pretending to care about him. But, his ego gets in the way, and Fortunato wants to continue on. So now we're going to summarize this page of our evidence cited. We are going to summarize this. The setting is creepy, which is a contrast to the carnival. So it's a contrast to becoming creepy and dark. A contrast to the carnival, because that's where we started out. A carnival, it was fun and all these exciting things were happening, and now they're alone in this dark, creepy catacombs. Montresor is giving Fortunato more wine. They are walking deeper into the catacombs. So again, we're seeing this continue. They're making their way deeper and deeper underground, farther away from the door. So we know that nothing good is going to come of this. So go ahead, and if you haven't yet, write down this note, pause the video if you need to, and then we will continue reading the story. Okay, we are now on page 4. So they are walking down further and further back into the catacombs underneath his home, and they are drinking more and more wine. We went on deeper and deeper into the earth. Finally, we arrived at a vault in which the air was so old and heavy that our lights almost died. Against 3 of the walls were the piles of bones, higher than our heads from the 4th wall. Someone had pulled down all the bones, and they were spread all around us on the ground. In the middle of the wall was an opening into another vault, if I can call it that, a little room about 3 feet wide, 6 or 7 feet high, and perhaps 4 feet deep. It was hardly more than a hole in the wall. "Go on," I said. "Go in. The Amontillado is in there." Fortunato continued to go forward, uncertainly. I followed him immediately. Soon, of course, we reached the back wall. He stood there for a moment, facing the wall, surprised and wondering. In that wall there lay 2 heavy iron rings, a short chain that was hanging from one of these, and a lock from the other. Before Fortunato could guess what was happening, I closed the lock and chained him tightly to the wall. I stepped back. "Fortunato," I said, "put your hand against the wall. You must feel how the water runs over it. Once more, I ask you, please, will you not go back?" "No. If not, then I must leave you. But first, I must do everything I can for you." But the Amontillado. Ah, yes, indeed, the Amontillado. As I spoke these words, I began to search among the bones. Throwing them in to the side, I found the stones which earlier I had taken down from the wall. I quickly began to build the wall again, covering the hole where Fortunato stood, trembling. "Montresor, what are you doing?" I continued working. I could hear him pulling at the chain, shaking it wildly. Only a few stones remained to put it in their place. "Montresor, this is a very good joke indeed. Many times we will laugh about it as we drink our wine together." "Of course, as we drink the Amontillado. But is it not too late? Should we be going back? They will be expecting us. Let us go." "Yes, let us go." As I said this, I lifted the last stone from the ground. "Montresor, for the love of God!" "Yes, for the love of God." I heard no answer. "Fortunato!" I cried. "Fortunato!" I heard only a soft, low cry of fear. My heart grew sick. It must have been from the cold. I hurried to force the last stone into its position, and I put the old bones again in a pile against the wall. For half a century now no human hand had touched them. May he rest in peace. So, we see, I want you to pause this video and talk about with your teacher what just happened. what did Montresor do to Fortunato? Now that you had a class discussion, I want you on these last 2 pages to go back and highlight or underline with your pencil all of the details that create this creepy, vengeful feeling. We're going to talk a little bit about this tone or author's attitude created and mood, the feeling of the reader, that's created next lesson. But I want you to, again, you could work with a partner, but pause this video and highlight any details like we did on the last page that show us this creepy, disturbing, suspenseful feeling that the author is creating for us. These could be details such as descriptions of the cave or the catacombs, maybe what he's doing to Fortunato. Go ahead and underline or highlight those, and then resume the video when you're done. Okay, I hope that you guys got a lot of good details highlighted, but I want us now to kind of break down what happened. So, what happened in the story is they reached this little hole in the wall that we later find out Montresor created. So, we'll call it a 4 by 7 foot hole in the wall that we find out Montresor created. Montresor tells Fortunato that the wine, the Amontillado, is in the hole. Fortunato goes in and Montresor chains him up. He then builds a brick wall in front of him. This is called immurement, one of the terms I guys had you guys look up, where he is basically going to be killing Fortunato by letting him suffocate to death. I mean, as was explained, it's only like 4 feet deep, about 4 feet wide, and 7 feet tall. So basically just enough space to fit a grown man. And he's going to run out of air very quickly. So Fortunato is either going to die by starvation, dehydration, or suffocation, whatever comes first, which most likely will be suffocation. He'll probably run out of air, and that is how he's going to die. So he built the brick wall in front of him. Fortunato begged him to let him go after realizing this wasn't a joke. Next, I want us to look at this last portion. My heart grew sick, it must have been the cold. I hurried to force the last stone into position, and I put the old bones again in a pile against the wall. For half a century, no human hand touched them. May he rest in peace. So, I want us to take a look at that because we know that he's we know that he's not really, we want to see if he's feeling guilty. He said, my heart grew sick, as in his heart is like, he's feeling guilt. But it says, it must have been the cold. So he's brushing this feeling off that he feels any guilt for what he did. I hurried to force the last stone into his position, so he did it anyways, and I put the bones back into the pile. So even though he was starting to feel a little guilt, he just brushed off the feeling, finished what he was doing. Then the last line says, for half a century, no human hand had touched them. This line is important because we can see that he's telling us this story. This clues us in that he's telling us this story 50 years later. Well, he's telling someone the story 50 years later. And now he says, may he rest in peace. But we want to be careful with this statement because we want to decide, is he being serious? Does he really want Fortunato to have a peaceful rest? Or is he being sarcastic and saying the opposite of what he means? Is he glad that he is dead? So that's something I want you guys to talk about after watching this video. Make sure you write down these annotations, and make sure you also did your own underlining and highlighting on the last 2 pages. Then I'm going to have you turn in pages 3, 4, and 5. Turn in pictures to the assignment on Canvas, Cask of Amontillado, Part 3. Thank you for listening, and I hope you